All right, we are now live.
Okay. I'd like to call to order the Maplewood City Council meeting for Tuesday, December 8th, 2020. First item of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Crosley.
Here.
Councilmember Faulkingham.
Here.
Mayor Greenberg.
Here.
Councilmember Pardini. I see Eleanor's present.
She's muted right now.
No problem, I got her down. Councilmember Phillips.
Here.
Councilmember Schmidt.
Here.
Councilmember Wood.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, a quorum is present.
Okay, I'd like to defer to our city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. Section 610.015 of the Missouri Sunshine Law provides that members of the City Council who are not physically present in the council chambers can participate and vote on all matters when an emergency exists, and the nature of the emergency must be stated in the minutes. So I'd ask the minutes to reflect that unfortunately we are still involved in the pandemic referred to as COVID-19, and pursuant to the orders of the St. Louis County Executive and the Health Department, the City Council is meeting remotely in order to protect themselves as well as the general public. And again, we just want the minutes to reflect that.
Thank you. Item number 5 is the approval of the council agenda.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any additions, changes, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved. Item number 6 is a public forum, the first of 2 public forums for tonight. Do we have any raised hands?
Yeah, if you wish to speak tonight, you can use the raise hand function in your Zoom app.
We'll give you a second to find that. And please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less, and try and present information, not necessarily reiterating what someone else has said. Keep our, give us time to attend to our agenda.
I don't see any raised hands, Mayor.
Okay, keep in mind that there'll be another public forum later in the meeting. Item number 7 is our announcements. Are there any announcements?
I have just a few. I thought it was very interesting about the Durham School Services donating a school bus to the Maplewood Fire Department. And then the fire department hosted a training course, and participating in that was Clayton, Brentwood, Richmond Heights, and Maplewood. And they were training for emergencies regarding anything with school bus emergencies, accidents. And that was like a 24-hour over 6-day training. So I'm sure they learned some really good information that we hope we will never have to use. The other thing is the Sweet Tooth Tour that's usually in January. It says on the website that it's on January 25th, but that has been changed. So that's going to be February 20th. And Laura is still working with the health department to like finalize the event. So that is all I have.
Okay, thank you.
thought-
Go ahead.
Yeah, I thought I saw too, the police department is doing a warm coat drive, is
Oh.
what I saw on their Facebook page. And
Yes.
do you know that includes children's coats too?
It does.
Okay, good. And
They're
blankets.
actually getting a lot of good donations too. It's very successful so far.
What
And I
about
think that's
gloves?
through,
Oh, I'm sorry.
and gloves too. Yeah, I think they're
Okay,
taking
'cause I have
gloves,
to- yeah.
hats, blankets, coats is what I
Oh.
saw. Through the
And
end
there's-
of the year is my understanding.
There's a container at City Hall outside the police department door that anyone can drop off clothing.
Excellent.
Are there any other announcements? If not, we'll move on to the approval of the October 27th, 2020 City Council meeting minutes and the work session minutes.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any modifications? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting minutes and work session minutes have been approved. Item number 9 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Maplewood, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to accept the bid from Landscape Structures in the amount of $461,654 for the Aquatic Center splash pad and native planting project.
Motion to
Anthony,
approve. Second.
we have a motion, a second. Anthony, would you like to give us a little bit of background on this project?
Yeah, we initially got a grant in 2017 to plan it, to hire land design services to go ahead and basically design the project. So we had our initial project kickoff May of 2018. We had several public meetings. June of 2018 was our first one. Our second community meeting was July of 2018. And then we basically ended up looking at a variety of options. We had 4 different options. We went with option 2. I've included in the packet to kind of show you the various features that are going to be included in this splash pad. It'll be closest to the library, the northwest corner. It'll be a nice addition to our Family Aquatic Center, which is, if we remember the budget process last year, we are making our last bond payment to pay this pool off in June of 2021. So we got the max grant, $270,000 for this through the St. Louis County Parks Commission. I'm sorry, $370,000, the max grant. And the intention is to get this completed by opening this spring. The last week of May, we're going to open. In addition to this, we're going to also have a native plant display. We tried to find different places around the city where we could put one. And it's always been of interest to the Sustainability Commission and just in the city in general. And so we're going to put one out along the west wall or the entrance to the building. And we're going to have like wayfinding signs so people can kind of look and find out what types of plants they're going to look at. We're going to have a little maintenance contract in there to make sure for the first few years it's going to be maintained by the company doing the installation. One of the concerns with native planting displays that I've seen over the years is it's difficult to find out what's a native plant and what's a weed if you're not familiar with looking at these types of plant materials. So we should be able to avoid that situation. So it's going to really aesthetically look nicer from the outside. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but we've also recently completed the resurfacing of the parking lot as well. So the pool complex is going to have a little bit of a fresh feature, which is going to be nice. About 5 years ago, we removed some older features where kids were kind of bumping their heads, like whale slides and a few other things. And we put a couple of those buckets that splash down and added a couple of minor features. And those have been a big hit with the little kids. So these splash pads are, younger kids particularly love them. And that's another reason we went with this location. Besides proximity to infrastructure, parents can keep a good eye on their younger children as well. It's going to be a nice feature. And again, it should be done by May. If anyone has any questions, anything I didn't cover, please let me know.
I just have one quick question.
Yeah.
Will there be an age limit on who can use this, or is it going to just be wide open? Will it be, how the kids pool used to be just for kids, and I would think mostly just kids would go in there, but I just wondered if there was an age requirement for that.
I don't know that we've looked at that, but I can ask the park board to look at that and see what best practices are for splash pads. I wish I could give you a good answer whether that would make sense or not right now. I don't know, but that will be something we'll make sure to look into now that you brought that concern up. Thanks for doing so. You don't usually like to start with fewer restrictions and just see if you have issues, and if you have to add them later, you can. I know there'll probably be a lot of adults in there with children. And again, I think mostly the kids that would be kind of maybe running around or knocking kids over aren't going to be too interested in it anyway. They're going to be going down the slides and the diving boards. But if that becomes a problem, we can always do that. But I'll make sure to have Tiffany mention that to the Parks and Recreation Commission at their next meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Are there any other questions?
Just real quick on the native plant display. I wasn't real clear based on the information that was in our packet. Is that going to be inside the pool boundaries so that only members will be able to view it, or will it?
No, it's going to be outside along the western facade of the building. So
Okay.
as you're coming into the parking lot, heading towards the entrance, you'll see it. It'll be on both sides of the entrance and a little bit closer towards the kind of the concession area in that grassy area outside. It'll be entirely outside.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
All right. If there are no other questions, we need a roll call vote.
Councilmember Crosley,
Yes.
Councilmember Faulkingham,
Yes.
Mayor Greenberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Pardini. I see yes. No? Yes, okay. Councilmember Phillips,
Yes.
Councilmember Schmidt,
Yes.
Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
Resolution 20-40 is approved.
Okay. Item number 10 is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Maplewood, Missouri appropriating and transferring $6,537 from the unappropriated fund balance of the 1/2 cent Capital Improvements Fund to account 2400-70010 capital outlay, and appropriating transferring $13,074 from the unappropriated fund balance of the Proposition P Fund to account 4000-70010 capital outlay.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion to second. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have a quick question. Do you happen to know after these transfers, Anthony, what the final balance is in each of these funds?
I don't have an exact number, probably around, if I had to guess, and it's pretty accurate, probably around nearly more than about maybe 1.34 or 1.75 million in 1/2 cent capital improvements, and probably around 400,000 in the Prop P. Those are guesses from our last budget, Yeah. When you get disbursements at different times in the year, so it could be a little different, but I mean, there's plenty of money in each of these accounts
Yeah,
to do this.
if we could get spending reports, I think that would
We
be
will.
helpful. I know that's something that you guys are already working on, but I think that'd be helpful, especially if we're going to see more of these transfers later this month. That would be helpful.
You shouldn't see more transfers. This is the reason, and that's why I wanted to put in my memo. It's one of those issues where the door system was working properly during our budget process last year, and then all of a sudden it's just been on the fritz. And I believe I was speaking with maybe Councilmember Schmidt just in general about it, because I just got done writing this. We are also, one of the positives about this is we are replacing companies that are doing our service of the doors. That's our biggest problem. Every time there's a problem, they come back to me with something I need to buy, and they're also not very responsive. And so I really want to get away from this company. And we're thrilled that Tech Electronics not only bid on it, but is a low bid, because we've had situations where, for example, the police department have been locked in their in the building, and they can obviously get out through a panic system, but also seems to happen on a Friday night. And so then they have to have beeping going on throughout the entire weekend, like a panic alarm. It's just a real problem. And again, it's just very difficult to get maintenance, or at least even a response from our current company. So this is it's going to basically have two birds with this stone, because we need to get away from this current company. And so the fact the system is actually on the fritz is actually a good thing, because I was thinking about trying to do this in next year's budget anyway.
Sounds good to me. That was all I had.
Okay.
So we're going to do those. We'll do those. I talked to the finance director, the monthly reports, the finance from the budget process, which I have a draft in here. We're going to get those to you monthly up until then. So when we are starting that budget process, you'll have had several months of history to take a look at that as well.
That'll be awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Just a quick one on the budget reporting. If there's any way for you all to like roll in revenue estimates or projections, if that's something that you all have, I think that'd be helpful for us to see as well. But that was it.
We can do that.
Okay. We have a motion, a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Second reading, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Maplewood, Missouri, appropriating, transferring $6,537 from the unappropriated fund balance of the 1/2 cent capital improvements fund to account 2400-70010 capital outlay, and appropriating, transferring $13,074 from the unappropriated fund balance of the Proposition P fund to account 4,000-70010 capital outlay.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion will move on. It'll be tabled and moved on to the final reading at the next meeting. Item number 11 is an ordinance approving an amended and restated plan for an industrial development project for Tech Electronics Incorporated, approving amendments to certain agreements in connection with the amended and restated plan, and authorizing the city to take certain actions in furtherance of the amended and restated plan.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions, comments?
No, but maybe for the benefit of the community members watching, we could give, just a summary of the changes. I think I'll try, and everyone correct me if I'm wrong, but originally this project was supposed to be done this month, but they increased the scope and size and are going to be bringing more employees to Maplewood. And so they have asked us to extend that construction completion deadline to December 31st, 2023, which we're agreeing to. Originally, they were receiving 15 years of abatement, 10 at 30%. No, right? 70, and then 5 at 50. And we are agreed to extend and allow 10 at 70, 4 at 50. We are also allowing them, if they want to extend their completion date out one more year, they will then get 10 at 70 and 3 at 50. And then also they have memorialized a community benefit agreement with the high school for student outreach and an internship and apprenticeship program. So
Thank you for the summary.
Good summary.
Well done.
thank
Very
you.
well done.
We have
A lot of
a,
attachments in there. Good job. That was.
That's the kind of stuff I read all the time for work. So.
Well, you're good at it, that's for sure.
Yeah, you are, definitely. Thank you.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Second reading, an ordinance approving an amended and restated plan for an industrial development project for Tech Electronics Incorporated, approving amendments to certain agreements in connection with the amended and restated plan, and authorizing the city to take certain actions in furtherance of the amended and restated plan.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion will, is tabled, and we'll move on to its final reading at the next meeting. Item number 12 is an ordinance of the City Council of City of Maplewood amending ordinance 5573 of the Maplewood Code of Ordinances as amended by amending Chapter 50, Traffic and Motor Vehicles, Section 50-203, stop intersection signs, by adding stop signs for northbound and southbound Sutton Boulevard traffic at the intersection of Sutton Boulevard and Richmond Place.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any commentary? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Second reading, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Maplewood, Missouri, amending Ordinance 5573 of the Maplewood Code of Ordinances as amended by amending Chapter 50, Traffic and Motor Vehicles, Section 50-203, stop intersection signs by adding stop signs for northbound and southbound Sutton Boulevard traffic at the intersection of Sutton Boulevard and Richmond Place.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion will be tabled for the next meeting and the final reading. Item number 13 is a discussion on resolution for a commitment to equity. Who would like to start this conversation?
I can just say a few words just to refresh everybody. So we had our first meeting about racial equity, I believe, over the summer in late June or July. July, I think. And we had guest speakers from the school board talk about the long history of their equity work in the school district. And then I think in late August or September, we agreed that we wanted to consider passing a resolution stating a commitment to racial equity. So not a racial equity policy for ourselves, a formal policy, but just a resolution stating our commitment to it. And then also consider the next item on the agenda, the RFPs. So we pulled the samples that, there was one sample from the National League of Cities in here, one sample from MRH from their commitment on educational equity and social justice from 2017, and the statement from Webster Groves. And then additionally, it just didn't make it into the packet, but Sandy sent us some example of language from the KDHX mission. So I originally envisioned this as something akin to the MRH style of resolution. That's my introduction.
Okay. And I thought the MRH resolution was well written. We'd have to adapt it to it's somewhat geared towards an educational environment, but certainly the sentiment that it communicates is appropriate for us also.
I mean, I liked what Karen do. It seems like just a short, brief statement, sort of, pledging our commitment. I thought that was great. So maybe you could just sort of insert those provisions in place.
I thought that would be like maybe a combination of something. The format for what the school district had is good to me. I think that is good too, with putting our own language in there, but yeah, I think that just to get that language in there, whether we use the school board one or the Webster Groves, it matters not to me, just so long as we do get that language in there with whatever else we do put.
So I have some draft items. Does anybody else have draft items?
I'm not sure I know what you mean.
Well, I mean, I have like draft bullet points that I could share.
Okay.
If I sort of tried to adapt the Webster and the MRH into something that was more city-like.
Oh, yeah.
So I have, we believe in fostering equity, inclusion, and dignity of all residents, business owners, employees, and visitors to Maplewood. We seek to reduce disparate outcomes among members of our community. I'm not sure about that one. Hold that.
Okay.
We seek to create an environment in our city spaces and through policy and practice where all people feel a sense of belonging and that their voice is valued.
Yes.
We commit to transparency in our work as a council and accountability to the people who elected us to serve and to each other. We seek to push each other and push with each other in our anti-racism work.
Yes.
We could, at the beginning, include some definitions. So like racial equity is a state in which outcomes can no longer be predicted by race. Racial equity work, we consider racial equity work as data-driven policy and/or systems work that centers the needs and voices of those with the most challenging outcomes designed to have population-level impact.
I think
Would
that,
that,
Yeah.
would that make, okay, or would that make more sense like in a policy?
I think it should be in a policy also.
I have one question. So I feel like resolutions go into like the black hole. I don't know where they go. So is there like, will we be putting this on our website so that everyone can see it? I think that would be great.
definitely.
Okay, so yeah, I would love to do that. So maybe on the definition.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of confusion today about what different terms mean. And I think they mean different things to different people. And I think clarifying that before we use those terms is a good idea.
Yeah, I agree too, because not everybody's on the same page and understands a lot of the language. I mean, I'm still learning a lot of the stuff myself. So it's, you know, I know other people are not as far along as we are for sure. So.
I would say if we're going to use the format of resolution with all of the whereases, you could couch the definitions within the bullet points that you're referring to.
Mm-hmm.
I thought so too.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good idea.
Yep.
Eleanor, was that the end of it?
I have two more and then a question for you all. So this is like a maybe. We commit to using data disaggregated when possible to make data-driven policy with a goal of reducing disparity and increasing equity. And then the last one is a little jargony, but it's in some ways bringing some of the language into a document that we commit to and a document we make available to the public. I took some of it from the Ferguson Commission report and writings of Ford through Ferguson. So in the spirit of the only way forward is through, from the work of the Ferguson Commission and Ford through Ferguson, we commit to ongoing learning about institutional racism, anti-racism, and institutional transformation, to ongoing skill building and systems transformation, to radical listening, to courageous conversations, and to a culture of trying.
I think all those are appropriate.
Yep, I agree.
I think the last statement, looking at or comparing it to the MRH resolution, that last statement could replace the "therefore be it resolved" that we will continue to, and then go into your commitment statement there.
Going back to the previous one with regards to data, would that be best expressed in the resolution or in our policy?
I'm not sure. That one I'm on the fence on. That could be in the policy. In a way, I think this resolution is more of an expression of values. You know,
I think it's more what we want to accomplish, not necessarily how, well, I don't know, how we're going to accomplish it. It's really a combination of both, so.
Yeah, the other items I had, I think, are more like expressions of values and vision, which is what sounds what I feel like feels like resolution to me, the using data for making data-driven decisions, yeah, is a bit more of a process than value and vision. So I am good with leaving that one out, actually.
On a side
I didn't
note,
go ahead.
sorry, since we're going to probably on the work session this weekend, we're going to be talking about strategic goals and potentially our comprehensive plan. The data-driven analysis and disaggregated data can certainly be incorporated into that conversation so that it's more of a comprehensive discussion rather than just related to equity. Because I think data-driven decisions needs to be more of a goal or a vision for the city as a whole, not just on the equity resolution.
I mean, and we could just put like data-driven policy and practice as one tiny item in that final commitment statement. But yes, Councilmember Phillips, I agree that that data-driven decision-making should be across all of our work.
Going back to the second item that I didn't necessarily understand that. It's one that you're on the fence about. Can you restate that one?
Was it the data one?
No, it was the second one that you.
Oh, was it we seek to reduce disparate outcomes?
Yes.
I mean, that's, if you're going to include the definition of racial equity in one of your, just as like a, let's level set the language, like what we're going to talk about in the rest of this document, then I think that idea is captured when we say, you know, racial equity is a state in which outcomes can no longer be predicted by race, and that racial equity work is data-driven policy and systems work, So I think it's sort of captured in some of the other ones that might be better stated.
Okay. Does anyone have any additional comments that they would like to be included in the resolution?
Yeah, so something I liked about the National League of Cities model was that it actually called out many of the drivers of racial inequity, and right now we haven't done that. In particular, the National League of Cities does expressly call out police brutality, and that's something I'd like to see, like a strong statement on condemning that. I think being vague about it and dancing around it can benefit the status quo, which will then benefit white supremacy, which is not the goal of this resolution. And so I'd like to see an actual statement of us condemning police brutality. And I'd be happy to honestly just copy what is captured in the National League of Cities, if that's something that you all would like me to read out real quick.
Why don't you, the first bullet point in there is, why don't you read it?
So it says, whereas, and then you insert your municipality name, condemns acts of brutality, racial profiling, and the use of excessive force by law enforcement officers.
Is that a policy statement? You know, or I'm having a hard time figuring out what we should put in the policy and what we should put in the resolution. Obviously, that statement needs to be made. I don't know if it's in the same general category as the other ones that we've discussed. Seems specific.
Yeah, I understand that. I think it's hard for me to value an equity resolution though that doesn't call out police brutality. That's where
I'm fine with that, Sarah. I mean, I agree. I think the important thing to remember is that the resolution is just a statement. It's not the actual work. So it's okay to have them in both places, right? Like, I think it's important. I think having it here doesn't, harm anything. I think I'm okay with it. So
I'm okay with having it here. I mean, I would be also, I had thought about this, like, should we, we can name other key pieces like structural drivers of inequity, like housing policy or zoning. You know, we can just, as a statement, we acknowledge that these things contribute to existing disparate outcomes in health. And
I'd like to take it a step further though than just acknowledging, but actually use the word condemn.
okay, so we can lift the NLC first bullet point on police brutality, racial profiling, and excessive force.
That's what I would like to do. That's my.
And there was something somewhere I read that I really liked that named other like multiple factors that I can try to find if we draft this up.
So I guess the next step, it sounds like, unless anyone had anything wanted to add, the next step would be putting a draft together. Are you okay doing that, Eleanor?
Can I ask Mr. Traxler and Mr. Hessel, like, how does this do, like, if I just, do you all draft a resolution based on, or do we draft it and give it to you to revise, or how does this work?
You just want to send me the specific bullet points you want, I'll throw it together in the standard language and then send it out to everyone to make sure I've captured all your key points and make sure I'm not missing something, and then we can present it.
Okay.
You can just even throw that in a simple email format, Eleanor, anything you want, and I'll pull that together.
Okay, I can copy down the notes that I took.
Eleanor, if you looked at the Webster Grove statement, there's a few things that are mentioned in there that are not in the Maplewood school district. There's things that say about marital status, citizenship, sexual orientation, age, income. There's a lot of things that are not really in the one from the school because it wouldn't be, you know, really related to students area, I guess. But you might want to look at that when you're, you know.
Okay, what if I combine, just review the MRH and the Webster and make sure I get the maximum.
Right. We want to cover as many possible things as we can. So.
And then once we get it in that typical format you're used to seeing, you can just make changes after we get that as well. Then that way, once Eleanor gets that to me, I'll throw something together, send it back to Eleanor first, then to everybody else, if that's okay with the rest of the council.
Sure.
And going back to the condemnation of police brutality, there's quite a few things that we would like to condemn, and so I'm singling that out makes it sound like maybe there's a bigger problem than there is. We're going to condemn any type of behavior that's inappropriate and discriminatory. So that's just my comment. We can leave it in if everyone feels comfortable with it, but it seems like that everything else is happening at a different level of detail than that. So, but it's another thing that we can discuss, and maybe we do not only do that, but we condemn other actions that. But it's subjective as to whether it goes into this document or goes into our policy statements. So that's just my. Go ahead.
I think this statement of our values is a good place to list the things we condemn. I think what you're saying about there is a full scope of things that we would condemn. I think that's important to call those things out, and to be courageous in the things that we stand against, as well as stating the things we stand for. And I think a resolution like this is, a statement, a public declaration of our values is a good place to do that.
And I thought, correct me if I'm wrong though, Councilmember Pardini, I thought you might have a statement that sort of encompassed several drivers, right? So we were going to try to
Yeah.
not just, I think the idea is maybe that there will be several, things listed as well. So I don't, was that correct?
Yeah, I think it was somewhere later in the pages of material that was in the support for this discussion. And so
Yeah.
I just want to poke around and find it because I liked
Perfect.
the language.
Yeah, I'm good with that too, but I do like, this is just a statement that we condemn it. It's not that we're accusing anybody of doing
Right.
this. Police brutality, as we have seen over many, many decades, is probably the most egregious part of all this. So it's behoove us to condemn that as well. We can list more to condemn, but you could, obviously we condemn that outright, and I have no problem putting that in a resolution, from the city of Maplewood. So
Agreed.
Yep.
Okay, well, in that case, it looks like you have some direction with which to draft a resolution, and you'll forward it to Anthony, and Mr. Hessel will review it, make sure that we're not doing anything that we shouldn't be doing. And in the meantime, if people have other, this is a work in progress. This doesn't have to be a final document. And, and I don't mind revisiting it on a regular basis too. As things change, as we, hopefully improve our, our awareness and the actions that we take to back that up. So is there any more discussion on item number 13 on the resolution? If not, we'll move on to item number 14, which is a discussion on the request for proposal for racial equity policy and audit. Eleanor, would you like to start that one since you've done a lot of work in that regard?
Sure. So we started this discussion. This is the discussion that we did start in June of this year. And this was spurred by a possibility of creating a kind of equity committee or commission. And we largely agreed that we wanted anything that happened to sit inside a bigger arc of work that we were doing and a bigger process of work we were engaging in that was part of deep, meaningful transformation. And so we participated. One of the first things we did was all 7 council members participated in the one-day training with Crossroads anti-racism training and organizing it was the one-day introduction to systemic racism. And we wanted to engage, we talked about wanting to engage as a city, as a council, and as a city in capacity building. So more training, more shared language, more shared understanding, more skill building. So actually building the muscles, building the skills of our racial equity lens, our power analysis, our, using the tools, so skill building, and then creating a racial equity policy that defines the lens through which we hold ourselves accountable and make all decisions, and then consider a racial equity audit. So that's where we would hire a firm to help us go through our they would look at outcomes and also policies and how well they support or don't support racial equity. And then finally, those are the building blocks toward creating a racial equity plan. And it takes building blocks and time to get to a racial equity plan. And so we were thinking about, do we want to bring on a firm to help us with the first stages? So capacity building, like training and skill building, writing a basic policy, which like the MRH school board just did in, I think, January of this year. And theirs is a very simple policy. And then possibly combining into one RFP. We could consider if we want to go ahead and combine a racial equity audit. And like there's some firms that we know specialize in audits for government entities and for with school boards and school districts. So that's the background. So I think that what we need to do is decide, do we want to hire a firm? Do we want to put out an RFP, and what's the scope of work? And I would say that with this kind of work, the most important thing is to make sure it's scoped well. If it's scoped too broadly or too vaguely, I think it sets the work up for failure. So I think it's a matter of not biting off more than is reasonable for one, splitting it out where we need to and scoping it very specifically.
Did the school board use an outside firm to write their policy? That was a question.
Yes, thank you. They did use an outside firm. So they worked with the MAP Center for their, they put out an RFP for a firm to assist them in an equity process, and it consisted of capacity building and writing the policy. Their audit is built into a separate process for them. And the MAP Center is an institution that specializes in working with school districts. So they did use a firm. And then I know like there are some other examples. So Webster Groves is initiating an equity audit, and they are doing that with Beloved Community, which is known for equity audits.
Well, do you know of a city or cities that already have these policies written that we could, investigate what their policies are and see if, we could look at that? Or do we want to just do an RFP? I think that's the question at this point. Do we want to try to, see what policies other cities have used, or even RFPs who they use to help them with theirs?
Well, and to clarify, it was my understanding from a school board member that participated in that the board actually wrote their policy. So I think MAP helps them and guides them, but they did craft their own policy. So
Yeah.
we do it, Karen. Like, I think that's a great idea, is that there's always examples out there that maybe that could help save us some money. If we found some.
I think the major value of working with somebody is that they're they're a facilitator and a coach. Like, they're trained in the language, the understanding, they're trained in holding people accountable, and they can provide trainings or structure trainings. So it's also that capacity building piece.
Right. And
would be built.
I agree. Like, I do think it's always helpful when we're doing something none of us is an expert in to have a facilitator who is knowledgeable. So I agree. I think, though, also in an effort to be efficient and economical, like, if there are ways that we can help save money in that process, that would be great too. But I do agree that there is definitely a benefit to having a third party help us with some of this stuff.
To me, the two goals for me are to establish some recommendations of actions that we can take to further our equity process, and also how to get the community involved in the process, that it's not just council making these decisions. And getting the community involved is something that I think we could use some help with, and someone could help facilitate that. But we need to listen to the concerns of our citizens, of our businesses, and so that can help shape the direction that we go.
And that was actually one thing I wanted to bring up. We've already talked about doing a community survey. And so again, thinking of economy, like if there's a way whoever we would get to help us with this could like work with that party, like I don't want to pay two different people to do the same thing. So I guess that was my thought. So Barry, like I agree. I think we need to reach out to the community, but I was wondering if we could find a way to put that together.
I was hoping that the community involvement wasn't necessarily just a survey. I would like to have members of the community, whether it's a commission, whether it's an advisory group, but something that our boards and commissions currently, we're looking at them to do more of a job of bringing ideas to us, and I would like to see, and they do a lot of research and development on these ideas. And I would like to see a group of our citizens and our businesses do the same thing with regards to equity issues, even though it's not as specific. It's overreaching, all the boards and commissions, all the government operations, city council, Maplewood staff. And, but I think we need to really develop some type of input system that's on a regular basis, so that we can study perhaps particular issues that need to be addressed.
Agreed. I guess I just want to clarify, I'm not opposed to that. I was just saying, I don't want to also repeat services. I do think it's important to have a small group, but I also think it's important to have wider community feedback. So if we are seeking also wider community feedback, I would like to make sure we're not paying to do it twice.
Yeah, but I think we're going beyond what our scope really should be. And that is, as Eleanor has stated, to make it small and concise, so that, again, as several people said, we're not experts in this, and it'd be great to have somebody to facilitate teaching us the skills and the language necessary to find out who the stakeholders are, to be able to build a policy that makes sense for Maplewood. So, we got to take it a step at a time. The survey can be something else, but I think for an RFP, it should be that the capacity and not crafting our policy, but helping us and guiding us for that, because I think just in that process alone will give us finally enough education and all that kind of good stuff to say, okay, great. So now we know who our stakeholders should be. Let's get out, let's get them engaged. How are we going to do that? I don't know yet. And I'm not going to speculate that, because again, that's just a step beyond what we need to be looking at, really. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents.
I think that in agreement with what Jenny said, certainly, and with what Eleanor said, if we could perhaps have this entity help us develop the questions that go on the community survey. I don't think we need to do 2 separate surveys, but we want to ask questions that are actually going to produce some information that we can use. And I don't know what those questions are. And I don't know that we're qualified to ask those questions, but someone that has done that before, not just someone that puts together surveys, but someone that deals with community equity work might, I think that should be part of the RFP.
So if we go back to the original draft that we got from one particular firm as a possibility of a process that they outlined for us, the one that you got, Barry, there were community members, business owners, a diverse stakeholder group that was invited to be part of stakeholder discussions and the trainings and the capacity building. So it was more like focus groups or focus trainings. last we discussed, I thought we were going to move the community survey along, and like this is going to get bogged down in writing an RFP, putting out the RFP, reviewing the proposals, and then getting started on work with a firm. And we all talked about wanting to get the community survey going because we've been talking about it for 2 years now.
But I guess we have, okay, I mean, I guess if we get this settled tonight, we should be able to move this process fairly quickly. I guess I'm just, yeah, I don't want to hold stuff up. I just also want to be really cognizant. I know, you know, with the world as it is, that we're already going to have a tough budget year. And so I'm also trying to be very respectful of, you know, our finances. So that's the only point I'm getting to, is an efficiency in that. To Shawn's point about like this, it sounds like from what he said, you know, Eleanor, you sort of gave us, there's sort of like different components of this. And so it sounds like maybe what we're focusing on are the first parts of what you said and not the audit piece.
Not the audit.
Accurate. Like we're the getting started piece, like how we.
Yeah, I mean, we should take a piece at a time, because what's there to audit if.
Right.
Policy and begin implementing that. So that's a step that we shouldn't even look at. We need to look at making sure we have the building blocks now so that we can get this.
Do we want to outline, like, I mean, so if it's capacity building and writing a policy, do we think that that's something that could be accomplished within a 1-year time frame?
Oh, yeah.
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we can set shorter goals, but or like a 9-month time.
I guess I'd like whoever's the expert to tell us what they think is a realistic timeline. Maybe I guess I don't know.
See, part of what I was thinking though is that we have an RFP process for this equity piece, and then when we do a community survey, we don't have someone selected, so we're going to have to do an RFP for that. And my guess is that even if they happen at the same time, when the community survey people are generating their questions, we'll have engaged by that time with the people that are working on the equity piece, and therefore we could incorporate, you know, their questions into the survey. I'm not saying hold up the equity piece or the survey or anything else. I think they can happen both at the same time, especially if we're talking about doing the community survey, right away. We were holding off on that because with the city manager selection, it's not that we were, dragging our feet, but at one point we decided that the schedule would coincide with that. And since that's changed, we then decided that we need to move forward with community survey, and I would like to do that. And we have to go through an RFP process to get that done.
I thought we did that.
Didn't we already do that?
Did we do that? And that's what we got those for?
Yeah.
We had three firms submit them, but what's happened, I think I'm not sure what, but the bottom line is we need to go, they're very lengthy. And so we need to go through those and then figure out what firm you want to choose.
Are we beyond, do they contain a time frame by which they expire? Are we beyond that?
City Attorney Hessel, considering the COVID and all the other issues, which is why we postponed this, if the firm agrees to honor their original request, because we're looking really at qualifications for the most part anyway. We can negotiate terms later. I don't see any reason unless the city attorney has a concern with that.
No, I do not.
So the proposals you have right now, we can approve those just as soon as the council agrees on what firm they like the best. We can set up interviews, whatever you need us to do to discuss, and you can maybe ask them questions, and we could get additional samples, whatever you need. Just let me know. I can draft the resolution approving the firm, and we can get started on that.
I also think that we put this on the agenda for the next meeting. We had talked about trying to do it tonight, but we were like, that's too much. So I think we're going to talk about it next week. And I would like for us to commit to reviewing the responses and having like our top firm picked in advance of that meeting, so we can go over that relatively quickly, if that seems reasonable for everyone. Okay.
No, that seems reasonable.
Sounds good.
That would move us forward, yes.
The proposals, I'll just warn you, the proposals are long, so if you need a little time,
Karen's already read them once,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, but how long ago was that?
I know.
I'm gonna read them again now.
Yeah, they are long.
and if anyone needs those again or needs me to resend them, just let me know. Just send me an email. We'll get them to you.
Actually, if you distribute them to everyone again, so that we don't have to look for it.
Didn't
I'll do
you
that.
send that to us, Barry? Didn't you send us those?
Yes, Barry did.
Yeah, okay,
He did send us all three like
yeah,
2 weeks ago.
right, okay.
Oh, 2 weeks ago. Okay, well,
Yeah, just 2 weeks.
and I'll have them in the packet again. So in case anyone needs it, let me know.
I'd like for
And-
Anthony to be the repository for,
Mr. Traxler, can I ask an RFP question?
Yes.
When you write an RFP, is it usually specified in the RFP kind of the time frame of the project, or is that just like free for all in what you're like, we have no time frame, submit your ideas to us?
It just kind of depends on the project. You know what I mean? I mean, when we come up with a proposal to accept that, we could go ahead and create that if it wasn't in there. It has been some time since I've looked at that RFP myself. It's probably been going on about 9 months. So I'd have to look
Just
that over, but we can absolutely
No, I
write a
mean,
time
in
frame.
general, like in thinking about scoping out this racial equity capacity building,
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant the
do we
community
sort
service.
of, do you generally, like if you have a project in mind, do you generally say we would like this to be done in like 6 months or 1 year or 3 years?
Yeah, there's
or do
nothing wrong
you-
with laying out. I mean, the more you can lay out your terms and what your expectations are, the better the firm's going to be able to respond to the inquiry. So
Right.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. In fact, I think would help with the process, letting them know
So
what your
yeah.
expectations are.
So I think that's part of the scoping that we have to do there. We have to have an idea now of what we want. Which
So,
is,
but go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, I have a process question. So since this is something that's council originated, is it, and this is, I think, where things get a little murky, is it appropriate for us to draft the RFP, Anthony, or is this something that should be owned by staff? Because I just want to make sure that we do this.
I can go ahead and do it. Again, similar to what we're doing with the resolution. I just need the nuts and bolts of it and I'll put it all together.
Okay.
Put in some of the standard language we would have in our RFPs. And again, if there's anything I'm concerned about that needs legal review, I'd run it by City Attorney Hessel as well, just to make sure we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's. But no, you can send me the information similar to the resolution.
Thank you.
So to determine timing though, I guess I have a question about, so Eleanor, you mentioned like what they may do is like training and things like that. I guess what is the scope of that traditionally? Like, I guess.
so they might sequence a series of trainings and they might say, we're going to come once every 6 weeks and meet with you. And you're going to do here, we're going to set up this four trainings, this series, and it's going to be, racial equity lens the first 2 times, power analysis the next time, and then like one of the other tools the next time. And so they would sequence the trainings and come and do them, and you would want to have like a general time frame over which that's going to occur.
And I don't really know I guess that's where I'm getting troubled in the time.
So
I would say, yes, we want to accomplish it in definitely less than a year, but sooner than that if we can. So I don't
would say
specific than that.
I mean, I would say capacity building, the training is not necessarily like super fast, that we should give ourselves grace that to do that, like not set up such an aggressive schedule that we all go bonkers.
Right. I'm just trying, you seem to want to set a time frame. So I'm trying to figure out.
So I think there's some examples we can look to. So we can ask the school board for more information about their experience because they've done this and they could help guide us. We could look at the example that Barry got from that firm in April or June. We could look at the example because that contained a timeline and specific training. It contained a sample series. We could also, if you look in the samples I sent, so on page 76 of our packet today, I think the 2 cities that are most close to what we are, like the early stage that we're in, are West Lynn, Oregon, and Columbia, Missouri. Those full RFPs are actually available. We could go read we could look at their RFP to see what their timeline was. So we could look at a couple other examples as it once, you know, now that we know we want capacity building and writing a policy and not the audit, we can do a little bit more work to scope out, get some more detail on what we would want that to be.
And just to note, I pulled up the one we received and it doesn't have an actual timeline. It just lists out phases. So
On page 76.
no, I'm saying in the proposal we received from
Okay.
just as an FYI, it has phases,
Yeah.
what they do in each phase, but there's no
Yeah.
timeline. So we'll
Okay.
have to look at the other stuff. Or follow up with them. I mean, we could also follow up with someone and
We
ask,
could follow up with them.
right?
I thought Westland, Oregon was good. That's the one I had checkmarked. That was my favorite compared to what, you know, comparable to our city. And also Columbia. But yeah, those are the two. I agree with that.
So does someone want to volunteer to contact these organizations to find out what they recommend for a timeline? Or if no one wants to do it, I can do that.
So I know the one organization, I guess for this other organization who,
I mean, I can do the sample that we got in May or in June.
who would you propose we contact Barry for the other ones, the city, or try to figure out who they used?
We can just actually read their RFPs. They're on
Oh,
there.
okay. All right. I don't mind. I can read the RFP and see.
I think, Anthony, did we get the full RFP
right
from Columbia, not just the abstract? I think we got the full proposed RFP.
That was my understanding. It was full.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So Westland, Oregon is on the internet, and Anthony was able to obtain the Columbia, Missouri one for us.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Traxler.
So let's do this then. We can take this part of the discussion offline. We have quite a few people that don't necessarily, you know, that are listening to us tonight that, you know, so in deference to their time, I'd like to move forward and exchange emails with regards to, we've got several people that would like to, that are willing to contact and research RFPs to help establish a timeline.
Well, but I just want to make sure I don't want to drag, like, I also don't want this to take longer than it has to. So do we understand what the scope of our RFP is? Did we go through everything, Eleanor, that we would need in order to write that?
I think we have enough to go back to some of the samples and try to get a draft together, like a bare bones.
So does
draft
someone
together.
else want to help with that as well? Because I feel like we've tasked you with the resolution, and to share the work fairly, I think it would be helpful if others sort of do that. Okay.
I'll do that.
Awesome. Thank you.
What I'm going to do is just make bullet points.
Yeah.
Make the other RFPs, what we do, what we kind of want to have accomplished, and then we can kind of take it from there. And I'll have that done by the next council meeting, I guess.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah,
That'd be
I'll figure out timeline by then too.
That'll be an Excel
Thank you.
format, I think, spreadsheet.
No.
Not sure. I'm probably just going to
Nope.
do a list.
No.
on paper.
Okay,
Mine's a Word document.
Yeah, we'll just do
okay. Any further discussion on the RFP for racial equity policy and audit? Okay, item number 15 is council communication. Is there any communications? Are there, I should say? Okay. Item number 16 is the mayor's report. This morning, I attended a meeting of the Hanley Road Transportation Development District. And the bond rating went from A- to A, so that's good. There were orders for $170 million on this bond, so it's very strong. So I think we're doing so the idea is that it would be refinanced at a savings to the city. And Anthony was on that in on that meeting too. I don't know if you wanted to add any comment to that.
The overall savings, typically when you're looking to refinance bonds like this, you shoot for 3%. And you can even go lower, but that's usually the goal. We got it at 7. And Stiefel said it was nearly unprecedented during these times to have your bond rating actually go up. And everyone knows AAA is the highest, but for a commercial development where you don't have the backing of a major entity, to get an A rating is exceptional. So they were very pleasantly surprised. Save over $2 million roughly in that, and it's and again, so it was obviously, you always worry when you go out to make sure you're not going to get it, but to save 7%, they were pleasantly surprised.
And also another note, at the VFW Hall, the owner found some World War II plaques behind the paneling, and we're going to see if we can incorporate those into our veterans memorial or someplace else in the city, so we can honor, especially since today is the day after Pearl Harbor Day. And there's very few of those veterans left. It would be appropriate to acknowledge the sacrifice that they made for us. And one last thing, on the boards and commissions, I understand that we're working on the process. I did contact everyone that was elected to a board and commission. I talked to probably 2/3 of them and left messages for the other third. So yeah, I'm not sure where that fell down, but I do agree that we can make that process more exact and also provide the new board and commission members with training and more of an idea of what their responsibilities and that are going to be. This is still an ongoing process, and it's improving a lot from where it was before. We're getting there.
And Mayor Greenberg, I did have a discussion with Councilmember Schmidt as well. I'm going to be forwarding you some draft materials. When I say you, I mean the entire council, that I believe will help. So you can give me a little time to get that done before we spend any additional time on it, because I think I have some pretty good solutions that I spoke with Councilmember Schmidt and members of staff about. We'll create welcome packets and we'll lay out processes and procedures, some generic for all boards and then others that will be tailored to the specific board. So I should have that to everyone, when I say shortly, in the next week or two.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
These people are volunteering their time and energy, and we do need to not only make it easier for them, but we need to make sure that their input is regarded and respected by City Council. So item number 17 is the City Attorney's report.
Nothing to report, Mayor.
Item number 18 is the City Manager's report.
Nothing except for what I've put in there. If anyone has questions about that, I mentioned briefly that, I'm talking about it in the inspection process changing. Again, before I take the time, effort, and energy, to me, it's something I've considered over the years. I'm not sure I have to lay somebody off yet in this upcoming budget year, but again, considering how personnel costs are 75% of our budget, unfortunately, I may need to cut somebody so remember I mentioned every time you cut somebody, we're so thin now, you'll end up losing services. Theoretically, you would be losing services here, but it's a loss that to me is tolerable A lot of times getting in some of these apartment complexes every year, that because we've been doing this for so many years, they're all in good shape now anyway, to where I'm comfortable doing every other year, which would allow me to cut one of the 2 housing inspectors in the upcoming budget year. I have one of them retiring January 1st. So it would be reduction through basically through someone going through retirement. I would not have to actually fire anybody or lay anybody off. And so I just wanted to make sure before I spend the time on that, the council doesn't have any questions or any concerns.
So I did, when I initially read that, I was concerned about rental units not being inspected every year, given and I know this is probably why you want to, like, it's a good thing to cut the number of units. I guess I feel like renters sometimes have so few protections that, like, this is a really important one. But I also want to say, in fairness, like, I think I don't necessarily have a lot of knowledge about what the current process is. So I was wondering if it would be possible if at our next meeting, like, if you could give us a presentation about, like, what the rental process, like rental inspection process looks like, what kinds of things they look out for, and sort of like about what renters' rights are if they have an issue. Because I will say I have seen some things on social media in Maplewood about renters complaining about issues of mold and stuff in their apartments. So I guess,
Well, I want to make it
for me to
clear
understand.
and Councilmember Schmidt, we would still respond to complaints. If we have to go to the same apartment unit every month, we will do so. This is just an annual inspection that's done regardless of if there's complaints or not.
Right.
Some of them are in such good shape, it's basically checking smoke alarms and then walking out. But I can get that for you. I can give you some simple, just basically a brief background. But again, we would operate on complaints as they come in.
Right, and I guess sometimes people don't really understand that they have that right to complain. And so maybe if we were to agree to that, it would be an increase in getting communication to people about, like, what that looks like. You know what I mean? Because I think people don't understand the rights they have.
Mold is one that we do get frequent calls on, and
Yeah.
we essentially, and we've told several people, Maplewood, we don't have the capacity to essentially identify what's black mold or what's not.
Right.
And we send them all the St. Louis County Health Department's information that is a lot of times not satisfactory to people. But we simply don't have the capacity to tell what's black
Right.
mold, what's not, what's toxic, what's not, and the county does. So if you're seeing a lot of complaints about that, I can honestly name probably 3 people's name, probably that they may be, because the same people have called about mold in some cases annually.
Yeah, I mean, and that was just one example. Like, so I think other things, but Sarah, you look like you had something to say.
Yeah, so I agree that I think a presentation on the process would be helpful. As a renter myself, I understand the part where I'm informed that the city's coming through, but would like to know kind of more details and, like, more of the workload that we're looking at here. I wonder, just with the range of housing stock we have in Maplewood, if part of the reason why so much of it is still in good shape is because we do inspect it so frequently. And I would be concerned about, cutting off that service line. I know we've got some tough budget choices ahead of us. I'm not unfamiliar with that type of pain. I am concerned about cutting off this service line for a population that is already hard to serve, that is moving in and out pretty frequently, and may struggle more generally to get connected to city services. And so I would like to have more information before we,
No problem.
yeah, that would be
And
great.
that's why I figured I'd go ahead and put a little feeler out there to see where everyone's at. It's not something that has to be decided immediately, but I'll definitely get some more information for you. Like I said, just an initial update, see where everyone's at, take the temperature. So I've got my direction. I'll get more information coming up.
Well, I did want to also say I appreciated the the schedule that you've laid out here. I think that's really, really helpful, and I appreciate how proactive that is.
I think maybe in addressing this particular issue, when people go to get an occupancy permit, if we had a page that we handed them about renters' rights and contact information, for the city, so that
We do have a renters' rights page. We have a pamphlet that we have that's probably 6-7 pages. And then a lot of times when people come in, there's many problems we can address. But again, sometimes we'll refer them to the county. Other times we'll refer to them. There are obviously other options, legal services and other backgrounds where we basically say it's called like a know your rights page for renters. And when they come up to get an occupancy permit at that time, if it's not, it should be described to them is that we come in annually and kind of explain the process. Usually it's through a lot of times when they're large scale apartment complexes, that's also handled through the actual property manager. We usually meet with them and go through with the property manager, and they also alert their tenants separately as well.
Yeah. Could we get a copy of that document? I may have received it a few years ago. I don't necessarily remember if I've kept it. And I think it'd be helpful for this entire council to see it.
Absolutely.
That'd be great. And then, yeah, I think if there was some way to maybe I'll leave it at there and I'll wait for your presentation.
And I'll go through that. And just keep in mind, ours is it's good. I'm not saying it's a bad. It's actually a very good thing. Because responsible landlords that care about their tenants and provide a safe environment for them have no problems with it. A lot of times it's the irresponsible landlords that that complain about it more than anything. Our policy is definitely one of the most rigorous in the area. A lot of municipalities only do inspections at change of occupancy. And you have some cases where people may live in an apartment or a rental unit for 20, 25 years plus. And that's where you really get into some of those fire issues and fire safety issues, wiring issues, and health and safety issues. Ours, for the most part, like I said, I'll get you the presentation to give you some good examples. I'll even provide a couple of sample reports to let you see kind of what we're running into out there. And I will just let everybody know, we've been doing some of these virtually, which is obviously not the best approach, but we do offer people that with COVID, if they're very, very concerned, we've also been doing some of these virtually as well, where they have to basically go through via, whether it be FaceTime or some other method. We've got several, our inspectors have them loaded on their iPads where we've done some inspections from our office of people's apartment units. And we're getting more requests, obviously now as the COVID numbers are going up. So we're still not at full capacity on our inspections. But I imagine in the next, hopefully the next 6 months or a year, hopefully sooner, we'll be back up to that full capacity. And that's why I'm thinking now is the time to discuss it. I'll get you more information next meeting.
Real quick, related to the position itself, I know this is almost everything you've tried to consolidate with other municipalities. Is this a position that can be shared with another municipality if we need additional capacity?
Not this position, and this would be a very unique position because we are the only ones that have this rigorous rental. When I say other cities, I mean anyone within, whether it be Richmond Heights or Brentwood or Webster or Shrewsbury, we have a much more rigorous policy. So we've already looked at bounced ideas around about consolidating, bounced ideas about possibly bringing MEPs, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing into Maplewood. And we actually were looking pretty heavily into this before COVID hit. But even if we did that, Councilmember Phillips, we'd probably have to have those 2 housing inspectors on Maplewood and Maplewood only. Now they could possibly provide backup to other cities, but we do so many more annual inspections than any of the other cities, probably more than all 5 that touch us combined, just because we do every unit every year that's rental. And half of our units in town are rental units. So we do a lot of inspections. I'll get you some numbers and you guys will see what we're talking about.
And also part of my conversation with Anthony as an architect was that if we went with one inspector, we still have the ability to bring in consultants. And we have some people in mind that, it would be less expensive to bring people in on an as needed basis to do some of these inspections than have 2 people full time.
The thought process is, we just had an inspector retire about a year ago. He's still in the area. He doesn't want to work full time, but he would come in occasionally if the workload was a little too high, because that was the concern. We're still going to be doing complaints. Councilmember Schmidt brought that up. So you're going to have one person there to respond to complaints versus 2. So even though the inspections are cut in half, those are just the set inspections. Those are not the complaint inspections, which we get a lot of. We wouldn't change that policy at all. So if it proved to be too much work, we could bring in somebody on a part-time basis, which would be much cheaper because we wouldn't have to worry about the benefits.
Is there anything else as part of the city manager's report?
Can I ask 2 quick questions? Mr. Traxler, do you know if there are any other like anticipated retirements in the next year or 2?
I know of a couple,
Okay.
but they're in positions where I couldn't eliminate the positions. This would be the only one that I think could possibly be eliminated. If other people retire, I would have to replace them. Otherwise, we would lose some level of service. So for example, if it's in public works right now, if I have any fewer employees, I can't have a full snow crew. Obviously, I can't do that. I can't have 2 leaf crews if I lose any more people. So, I mean, that's kind of what I mean by that, Councilmember Pardini. This is just a unique opportunity where we would be losing some services. And is that tolerable to the council? Yes or no? And we'll have more discussion on that in the future.
Okay. And can you just remind me for the budget schedule, did you say we will get some sort of revenue reports?
You'll get monthly
January?
revenue, expenditure, and revenue reports starting probably you'll get one this December, and then you'll get one in January, you'll get one in February, and every month from then on.
Okay.
We're going to make that a permanent policy. So even when I'm not doing this anymore, you guys will be able to see those from here on out.
Okay. Okay.
Or you'll have to ask the new person, why are we not getting these anymore?
Okay. So that will help us, because I know last time we were sort of wanting revenues first before we were doing spending, and hopefully that will give us enough revenue information or not.
Yeah, a lot of times when we're doing the budget process, a lot of times we will do those later because like I said, we'll have a little bit better idea. And if you remember, we were in the middle of COVID, so we kind of did those at the end the last time. We were wanting to see where we stood. If you want me to move revenue projections, because you can see I've got those in April. If you want those up further, we can easily do that.
I mean, I
I have
personally
it on
would love to
427.
start with
Okay.
as much revenue. I mean, did other people feel like we needed revenues early?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was something we talked about last year because it's hard to know how much to spend if we don't know how much money we have.
Yeah, I can move them up earlier. I wouldn't
Okay.
give you a budget if it's not going to be balanced. But
Right,
I can
but
absolutely move
right.
those up. I'll move those up.
I think that would be so helpful to me.
Yes.
Even if we know that it could be subject to change between, whenever we get it versus April 27th, it would still be helpful to have it earlier.
We will do that. And
Okay.
I mentioned our credit rating, we're getting reviewed annually. So last year, if you remember, we made a lot of changes, and that was obviously to stave off losing our credit rating or losing our current rating, having it lowered. We're still on that same timeline. So everything you're going to get from me is going to be obviously balanced, but we'll get the revenue projections moved to, if it's not the first meeting, it would be the second. I can't see, Eleanor, I'm looking at Councilmember Pardini, looking at this, we can absolutely make it the first. I'm looking at our schedule right now. I'll make sure to
Thank
change
you.
that.
Thank you
And
so
can
much.
sorry. When you say the GFOA distinguished budget presentation, does that mean this budget this year will be under that new format?
It does. So it's going to be a lot different budget that you're looking at.
Oh, yes. All right. Thank you.
It's a lot. I'm not going to lie. It's a lot more work
That's okay.
than I
That's-
anticipated.
well, yeah, sorry.
Karen Dover is gonna have a few more gray hairs. My budget's the most impacted. Chief Cruz is the second.
And just
So it's
huge,
It'll look a lot different.
huge
Very
You're gonna like this.
appreciative.
to
And
Karen.
I've talked to City Manager Corcoran, and I've specifically explained I'll still do the budget process this year because we had a lot of discussion how it needs to be, and I don't want to reinvent the wheel there. So don't worry about that.
Awesome.
It'll look a lot
Thank
better.
you.
You guys are
Thank
really,
you.
and the general
Thank you,
public is going to
like-
look at this, and they're going to be
Thank
able to
you.
look at this document. And you don't need to know a lot about municipal finance to understand why we're making these decisions and where we stand. It's not that our
Beautiful.
other one was misleading. It's just if you look at that on a daily basis, you can understand it. But if you don't, it's a little more difficult to understand what's going on. So this new document will look light years different than what our prior years did.
It's
Okay.
great.
Item number 19 is the second public forum. Do we have anyone with their hands raised?
I currently don't see anybody with their hand raised. If you'd like to speak at the public forum, you can use the raised hand function in your Zoom app. We'll give you a few seconds here to figure that out.
Okay. Yes,
Oh, yeah, we have one.
All right, I have Nick Hyland. Oh, Shawn, you brought her in. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nick Hyland, can you hear us?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I appreciate the discussion about the budget and the hard work that I know all of you will put into focusing on that. I do ask that you consider possibly having a town hall at some point before you make a final decision on the budget, so you can hear from community members to understand what they may need in their areas, the different wards of Maplewood. I don't know if you all agree with this, but I believe that budgets are moral documents, and we need to make sure that our community voice is heard when we are allocating money. So I just ask that you please consider doing that so our community voices can be heard. Thank you.
thank you. And I do not see anyone else, and I don't believe that we need to have a closed session this evening. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Then in that case, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The meeting is adjourned. Everyone stay safe, and we'll see you on Saturday.
And that's going to be 9 o'clock, correct? All right. See everyone Saturday.
Anthony, are you gonna have Laura send out an invite for that?
Absolutely.
Okay, okay.
Thank
Anthony,
you.
did you get my email?
I did. Thank you.
Okay, okay.
It's good to see everyone. I'll see you Saturday.
Yeah.
All right. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.